That's Pep Guardiola. This is Football Manager. We're going to combine the two and make some beautiful, beautiful tactics for your team. Pep tactic on Football Manager. Now, you're going to see loads around there on YouTube and various places. But what I believe makes mine different is I am a Man City fan for my sins and I watch them all the time. And he's very unique in the way he does his tactics. A lot of people say, yeah, that's the way Pep plays. And he does have a philosophy of the way he plays. But the way he sets up his team is very much driven by the team he picks. Certain players will influence the way his team sets up. So to recreate it in FM, we're going to have to disregard things like ultra high tempo because that is not the way City play. They are very, very patient. Team instruction wise, I'm going to cover 3 variations today with 3 different team selections. But what will remain the same is the passing directness and the tempo because that is just the way he plays. That is just the way he sets his team out and that's the way they just play every match. In transition, we only have counter press. We don't have a distribution type for the keeper because if you're playing Pep style, you want to have a keeper who's proficient on the ball and he should make that decision for you. When we get onto out of possession, this is where it'll slightly change depending on the system. This system here, you can see the outline of it there. We'll get into it in more detail shortly. Every time it's much higher defensive line because I like to push and cramp that space. But depending on a couple of roles, it depends how high their line of engagement is. In this example, it's mid-block. In another example, it'll be higher. The goal of all this is to get a pass map looking something like this. With your opposition's pass map looking like that, starved of the ball, clutching at straws. So like I say, we've got 3 versions today and it's due to these 3 players really. Version 1 will be John Stones, the Pep Libero. Version 2 will be the Pep Walker with Carl Walker changing roles. And the 3rd version will be the Pep Alvarez when Alvarez jumps in when De Bruyne is not available. Now there will be some key player instructions as well, which I'll include on the end of the video for all 3 tactics. I'm going to go through everything today, so don't you worry. If you want the direct download, they are available for my patrons, link below. But other than that, we're going to go through it all right now. So this is version 1. This is the Pep Libero, which he brought in midpoint of last season, I think, when John Stones played this role, the Libero. In the game, Stones is unfortunately injured, so as in real life, Akanji will deputise. So we just use this one against Arsenal, and if you look at the XG of the match story there, you can see the domination of the display alongside the match momentum. In fact, Arsenal only had the 1 shot. Also a possession-based team, so they had decent possession, but it was pretty one-sided. So this is the version that's probably the most fashionable at the minute, using the Libero. Built for John Stones, when he's not there, Akanji does it. So a lot of the influence for Pep's tactic decisions are based on what defenders he does have available. Now in this case, the Akanji struck Stones role is that Libero, which will mean he will move into this area here. Therefore, cover is supplied by Josko Gvardiol, who comes inside. On the other flank, Walker does still remain aggressive. Full-back attack, because he does want to have an eye on defending. So, full-back attack rather than wing-back, because if he's a wing-back, he's permanently up here. And with the Libero moving up as well, it will leave just 2 at the back. So we keep him as a full-back on attack. Anyone that's watched City will know how important this man is. Phil Foden as an inverted winger, I did toy with advanced playmaker, but I want him dribbling on the ball more because he does that cut inside movement an awful lot. And on the other side, we've got Doku as a winger. He only has the added player instruction of cross aim centre. Now, if that is Jack Grealish, if I brought Grealish into that position there, I would also add cut inside with ball because he does that an awful lot, does Grealish. Now, the only change in the in possession instructions from all 3, this one I've got fairly narrow, purely because the Libero comes in. You don't want to stretch the game too much. It's more central focused. In transition will be the same across the board. On this version, we have the high press because when the Libero gets played, they do tend to squeeze that a little bit higher up, aided and abetted by the get stuck in as well. We're going to use that system now against Wolves. We've just kicked off and the team are in defensive shape. Now, it doesn't take long for this system to start clicking into gear once you get possession back. Ball goes forward there. Now, Gvardiol gets it. Now, pretty much as soon as he's got it, Akanji's moving forward to form that double pivot with Rodri. Let's have a little look. So there goes Akanji now, moving forward with Rodri. Passing it and giving it. Gvardiol maintains wide until Akanji moves infield. And then so does Gvardiol coming into cover. You can see we've got a double pivot there. Then up higher up, you've got Mazzala, De Bruyne getting further forward, Foden, and then Kyle Walker's setting off as well. The whole dynamic of the team has changed now in possession as opposed to out of possession. You can see there, we've got a 4-strong attack across the front, the 2 covering at the back. And there's Akanji forming the defensive midfield with Rodri. And this is how you dominate possession when you've got more players filling gaps. Even when the ball goes loose, you can see it's the libero who picks it up in that defensive midfield position because he doesn't need to sit back here in this formation. He's got the license to go forward because he's got cover from the left back. And that helps supply the first goal. So what I will say about all these tactics is you're going to have to be a bit patient because the lower tempo, things are going to take a little bit more time to get going. But if you like watching football like that, like I do, you'll love it. It may be not the meta for FM, the high tempo, the ultra high press, but I'm trying to get the Pep tactic through to Football Manager and one that we can use and gain success with. If you look there now at that freeze frame, we've got that back four box, which is what we want, the full back, the centre back, and then the double pivot of libero and Rodri. So it's working out really well, and what that does is it just unleashes your front lot to have a bit more expressiveness. They can do what they want, knowing that they've got that box four behind them. Works really, really well in the game, albeit at this nice lower tempo, so they're taking the time a bit more a la Pep. If you have a game coming up where you're expected to dominate the ball, it's not a bad use of this system because you're basically putting a defender into midfield, like that heat map shows, rather than sitting back where he's not really needed. So that is the Pep libero for FM24. You do have a bit of license to change a few roles as you see fit. Maybe the striker role, you can nudge him to a poacher, or if he's not getting that involved, maybe you want to drop him back a bit. Potentially a deep line forward on attack, but I would keep the back four roles as is because they seem to blend together really nicely and form that double pivot. Next up, we're going to focus on Kyle Walker. Now, believe it or not, up until midpoint of last season, Kyle Walker was out of favour. John Stones was playing in the right back spot. Kyle Walker was out, but his resurgence has meant City have a new style of play. Indeed, it's often forgotten that Walker was actually out of the team for a while last year and received a bit of criticism from Pep Guardiola, but he's came back in and now he's probably the first name on the team sheet. And he has a bit of license to play in this version of the tactic. This is the Pep Walker 24, and you can see he's moved from a fullback on attack to a wing-back on attack. Now, this was especially prevalent in the recent game against Newcastle where Walker basically played like a winger. He was in this position basically from the start, bombing up and down. And it did cost them on the break, actually, where both of Newcastle's goals came down this channel because he was so high up. But it does give you some great attacking thrust, and you will notice the roles in defence change in this system. Gone is the libero because Walker's so high up all the time. If you chuck another player up there as well, you're asking for a bit of trouble. So they seem to play a bit more conservative with the two centre-backs holding their position more. Also on the left-hand side, because the centre-backs are sticking, it means Garvadol had a bit more licence to move on up. Unlike Walker, he doesn't look for the overlap and he doesn't bomb right down, but he does still get high up, which is why I've gone for the wing-back defend duty, where he will back up that wide man without necessarily looking to overlap him. So this tactic's an interesting one. Rodri, obviously in that defensive midfield spot, but I've just nudged him slightly over to the right-hand side because it's so damn attacking down that right. You've got a wing-back bombing up who's going to spend most of the time over there. You've got De Bruyne doing whatever he wants, most of the time just bombing on up there, and you've got Phil Foden. So possibly learning from that Newcastle game where they were exposed down the right, I've just nudged Rodri over to that right-hand side a little bit to provide a little bit more security from his start point. The only other tactic from version 1 is box-to-box role. I switched it to a roaming playmaker, whether it's Kovacic or Bernardo Silva in that role, like City fans would prefer. He's here, there and everywhere, just linking the game together without that libero to do that with Rodri. The roaming playmaker kind of floats around everywhere. I like that role. Some people might change it, but for me, that was perfect. Added in a couple of PIs as well. Obviously, these are all at the end of the video, but you can see there, it's all about getting the ball and progressing the ball up higher up the pitch. This is the version I used against Sevilla in a 4-1 Super Cup win. Really comfortable. The in-possession instructions are the same as Pep Libero, as are the in-transition. The only difference is the out-of-possession. So in this version, I actually let their defenders have the ball a little bit more, and I dropped to a mid-block, focusing on trapping their midfielders when they get the ball. It's one I'd probably use away from home for that reason, using a mid-block. So we're going to use that match now in a tough away match against Everton. And when we win the ball back here, hopefully you can see the difference in the two tactics. So Danjuma's got it, win the ball back and Walker gets it. Now if you look at the back three there they are. So you've got your wing back and you've got your two centre backs staying where they are. Kanji's not going to venture up here, for example. And this means Walker, in that wing back role, which is built around him, is going to bomb down here. He's basically playing like a right winger and he's got the free back there secure. So he's got all that space that's his. Foden's cut inside. There he is. Here he comes. Walker's literally playing like a midfielder, knowing that he's got those free back there. That's pretty safe. Now, like I say, if you're wanting tactics that will give you 30 shots, 10 on target, this is probably not the way to go because it's low tempo, it's structured, and it's a bit more patient. But if you want control of matches, you can see the match momentum there in the pass network. It's a nice way to go. I don't think enough people try lower tempo on Football Manager. And this is also what we're looking for in both systems, really. Rodri being the key, that progressive passer from the DM spot, 64 passes there. The centre-backs are the only ones close to him. And that's what, ideally, you're looking for. So two different versions there, both sticking to the philosophy, the in-possession philosophy. But maybe you can see a gap down the wings, for example, and that could be a better one to use. If you want to attack the central areas, dominate the ball in there, that's possibly the option to use as well. Now, the final tweak I'm going to do is with Julian Alvarez, who started most games this season because of the injury to De Bruyne. Now, this is one where you want to get a little bit more aggressive, potentially. You can use him in either of the two formations we've looked at, the libero or the wing-back. Now, I've set him up in the wing-back version. Basically, he moves into the shadow striker role. So let's put Alvarez in there for the sake of this video. You can see there, he moves into that position there, just off Haaland. He's going to be allowed to roam around a bit, though, and that will be added to his player instructions. Although super advanced, he does roam everywhere. When you watch him in match, you'll see him in both wings, in behind Haaland, past Haaland sometimes. So that's why we've got him there. If I start him just off centre there, that's why Rodri's in that position there. That works quite well because the right-hand side's quite overloaded, so we need a bit of cover there as well. So it's exactly the same as the Pep Walker. The only difference is the Mazzala switches into that shadow striker role. So it's probably a little bit more aggressive. However, if you wanted to use a libero, there's absolutely nothing wrong with switching to the libero version of it and just moving him up into that position there. And this is what I mean by having not one Pep tactic that you can just use on FM blanketly. He changes with what team he's got available. And it's probably a lesson we could use in Football Manager ourselves, really. So we've got a home game against Tottenham now, and we'll use the Pep Alvarez with the wing-back option as well. At half-time, we'll switch it over to the other version with the libero. Now, the advantages of this role are pretty clear, that when you've got the ball, you've got that more advanced player. We can see Alvarez there, still in that central midfield attacking kind of spot. But when we win the ball back here and we get on the counter-attack, you can see how fast and how quickly he is getting high up. He's basically on level there with Erling Haaland in the box. So you've got your second striker. If there's a Mazzala on attack, he's probably back here a little bit. So it is a more aggressive version for you to think about. You might not dominate the ball as much, especially against a possession-based team like Tottenham. You can see we've only had 42%, but you will create more chances with more players higher up the pitch. If I pause it there after 62 minutes, you can see Tottenham have really struggled to deal with us there. The extra attacking player has forced them back, so this could be a good option to use in home games when you're trying to dominate. For the last 30 minutes or so, I'll switch to this version, so we'll be less attacking down the flanks and more through the centre with that libero. So this is the Pep libero, and as you can see, he's basically on line with Haaland there, so it's a lot more aggressive. Your Mazzala would be a little bit further back, less high on attacking like this, but it's just overloading Tottenham in a different way. We're more central focused now. Walker's a little bit more studious there, it's just a little bit further back. If he's a wing back, he's probably higher up, but here it goes to Alvarez now with that roam from position. So he's got a bit of license to do what he wants as well. There he is again, just getting involved, getting it, giving it from that attacking midfielder right sort of position. And there's a libero navigating the central. So we've got that 4 in there, and that allows all the others to bomb on. So if you are using the libero tactic and you want to get someone a little bit higher up, bringing in the shadow striker, there he is, as a more attacking option, is a good way to go. So that was the Alvarez variation. You can see not as much control in regards to possession, but if you're looking to create more chances, it might be the way to go. So 3 different variations there for 3 different types of players that he uses in game, and that's a good lesson what we can think of when we're building our tactic. If you've got different players on the bench, it doesn't necessarily have to be like for like. You can just tweak it slightly. Now, like I said, all the player instructions for each tactic will be on the end of the video. If you want the direct download, it's in Patreon. But I know what you're thinking. That's with City. Of course it's with City, because it's built for City. Will it work at other teams? If you've got the players that it will work for, such as a libero, by all means. If you don't have a libero, then give version 2 or 3 a go with the wing back, and which is what we're going to do now. So pretty middle of the road, Erste Divisie FC Den Bosch predicted to finish 13th. We'll give a couple of games with them. So I'm just going to plug in the Pep libero. We've got Luke and Betty on loan here from City, so he's got a bit of decent play about him, so he should be able to do the job. So instantly from kickoff, they understood the assignment. There's some Betty who's going to be our libero, shooting up into central midfield. Lovely, love to see that. There we've got our 4 there. That's nice, and we've got 4 across the attacking midfield zone with that 1 striker. FC Den Bosch seems to be buying into it. Here is libero again. Little through ball. Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. It's the first match with it with no training, but they seem to be buying into it quite nicely with the pass map. And if you look at the stats, Rick Mulders is our Rodri in this role, and he's doing it perfectly. 89 passes, so that is working really nicely at this level too. Full time, a 3-1 win and a missed penalty. Plenty of chances. Possession was huge. I think that is a bit of a decent result, you know. I'm quite tempted to carry this save on. So those are my takes on Pep Guardiola for FM24. You may get better results if you crank that tempo right up to full, but I want to play like that. I want to see my team play like that on FM, like I see on my TV, and that's as close as I can get it. So coming up are the player instructions for each version of the tactic, but patrons, remember, the download is on your homepage.